Welcome. Today, Lauren, Christine, and I are going to be talking about sun transits 48 and 57. So we're going to explore around, see what we can learn, and what we can play with over the next two periods of 5.5 days. So if there's anything about gate 18, we were talking a little bit before about the integrity and what's happening in our world right now about that. Christine, and not go, Lauren, you had something you were thinking about.
Yeah, this gate 18 has hit me in a number of personal ways, which um, I think I'm still processing, which that's what the gate is, right? Christine is trying to get to the bottom of it. But this integrity, reaching for integrity in our doings and way of being. I had a very unusual altercation with a neighbor, unusual for me, um, this week that really put me in a place of having to speak for myself and our family and our boundaries, and yet still stay in alignment with who I was. And I could feel this this really happening. I think when we really lean into these gates, we can feel all the parts, right, of it. And we could, because obviously the wanting to be judgment and I'm right, you're not. I mean, that's so strong in us. And yet to be able to pull back from that and find this place of, hey, I can express myself and stay within my personal alignment, and staying integral to myself.
Yeah, no, I think that's really true about the gate 18 is the gate of correction, right? We talked about that and this idea that the the hexagram name is working on what has been spoiled, right? And so this idea that, we are noticing what needs to be changed and we're working to improve it, right? Which is a slightly different place than noticing what's wrong and making it right. Right?
Huh. Christine, I think we should talk about that a minute because that's really important.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think but that's the underlying energy of the gate, which is being, I mean, the shadow is being in judgment, right? Seeing, we see correction as what's wrong and how you can improve it or how it can be made better, right? Which is, we know this isn't doesn't work. It doesn't work at all, right? Because actually, if it's wrong for you, doesn't mean it's wrong for everyone, right? We know this, you know. And it puts us in a binary that, life isn't really binary like that, right? There's lots of shades of gray, right? And so just being in this place where I think, the experience you had was like, you have been in this, hard place with this neighbor right along. And, this thing that happened isn't going to fix it, but it shifts it, right? It shifted it and it shifted your own feeling about the relationship, right? And so there's some correction there. And now correction doesn't mean it's right and it's fixed and it's done. It just means it was corrected slightly. Course was slightly corrected. And we'll see from there what comes next.
And I think too is that you said what's going on here, Lauren, is that in this contemplation of these the gates or sun transits, is that it's creating so much more awareness for us about what's going on, and we're able then to observe ourselves in the moment and make different choices.
Yes.
Where everything that's coming up, you're going, yeah, that's all coming up, and it's useful information, but what do I really want to do with it? That's going to be useful. And it sounds like you got to do something that was like in integrity for you and was supportive of the situation shifting.
Hmm. Hmm. And I think it goes without saying, but I think we probably do need to speak this is it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
It's just not comfortable having hearing these different, it's almost hearing different voices within us, the different parts of ourself that want to respond on this low density level, and the part of ourself that I always call it like my inner Buddha speaking to my little child. That's kind of a lot what I experience. Maybe you each experience that a little differently.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, again, we're in the lower trigram of all of these gates that we're talking about currently, 46, 18, the two we're going to talk about today, 48 and 57. Their underlying energy is the gentle wind, right? It's a wind energy, it's the gentle. And I think that that is really, you know, that's the gift in all of this, right? Like being gentle with ourselves and others, right? And this energy to like work on things that, outside of this judgment space, right? To recognize that everything is flawed, that everything has, things that can be improved about it. We have things that can be improved about us, and to be gentle with ourselves around it, and to also allow, give others that same grace, right? And so I do think this is a really profound portion of energy, this underlying wind energy, because it is also, we talked about the fact that all of these gates from a human design perspective are in our spleen, right? These are our fear gates. These are our places where we're most pushed up out, to the outside world that makes us fearful and afraid. And we know this, our natural inclination and conditioning is to fight, fight back, push away the things that make us feel afraid and not safe and secure, right? And this section of time is really, I think, an opportunity to be like, what if I didn't fight so much, right? What if I did surrender a bit more, right? What if I was more gentle with the things that scare me? How would that shift, you know, me internally and the world that I experience externally?
And that other thing is, like from Gene Key's perspective, these four, the last two and these two, are part of the ring, are the ring of matter. And Richard Rudd talks about those all being connected with our development right from gestation right through about 21 to 21. And so that's about our ability to learn and to grow and to develop ourselves. So, and from my perspective, that doesn't stop when you're 21, but so
Right.
it's just opportunity to set the
Mhm.
trajectory.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting too, like we do this every year, right? We go back through these gates every year, and they're archetypally tied to our growth, our maturation in a way, right? And so we are given an opportunity each year to kind of, I mean, obviously we're always given opportunities, but this is kind of a specific energetic time to tap back in to that, native, that growth pattern within us from the earliest stages of our development, um, and just check back in and be like, hey, am I still whatever holding on to the same fears I had when I was 12, right? Like, can I release some of this, right? Um, which is a very splenic thing to do. Like, this is very much about the spleen, holding on to things that no longer serve us, right? So this whole period of time is going to be a great time to look at that. And as today's the last day of gate 18. Tomorrow we all step into gate 48, which is again in the spleen. It's the gate of depth, and in the I Ching, it's the well. And so it really is this energy about wanting to know deeply, or honestly needing to feel that you know things deeply in order to be secure, right? And so the shadow of this is insecurity and inadequacy, right? Like feeling not enough, right? Feeling like you don't know enough, feeling like you don't have enough. This is the gate. The fear gate is there's they each have a particular type of fear in the spleen, and the fear in this is the fear that things will never be perfect, right? Like there's never things are never fully adequate, right? That's kind of this underlying energy. Um, so again, a time for us to recognize that not only is this energy happening for us the next 5 days, we are of course in a sea of inadequacy right now, right? Like the world is throwing all kinds of this at us. We all see everywhere where things could be made better and made more adequate for more people. So I suspect this is going to be a particularly tough time in some ways for us to just really feel that piece that's like, this is not working, right? Either personally or collectively.
But there's also like with this one, there's that need to, like we were talking about growth and development and the need to turn inside and dig deep into what's going on. And I think a lot of us are afraid to look there because we're afraid of what we might find. And so, but then having done work ourselves and being around other people is recognizing that usually they're actually quite interested and pleased in what they find when they finally actually look. So it's maybe to have people consider that, like, if you're concerned about looking in because you're afraid of what you might find, you might really find a gift or two in there if you look. So there's Rena Magnuson used the bear as the totem for this one. And I thought that was interesting at this time of year because we've been out like walking and you go out walking and you realize, oh my goodness, that's bear scat on the there's bears right around here because there's so many berries and they're getting ready to go into hibernation. And like us recognizing that in that going in deep with ourselves, that there's like taking that time to step away. We don't have to go and hibernate somewhere, but to spend time with ourselves and be quiet and gentle with ourselves while we do it. It's an interesting time of year.
It is an interesting time of year for this to go on, and I'm thinking about the bears, and I'm thinking what they're doing right now is they're fattening up, and they're feeding themselves nutrient dense foods to last through a season of being slow and because they don't actually go to sleep, but they're resting, right? A season of rest. And makes me think about what we could do to fortify ourselves during this time and through particular foods. And I think looking to Ayurvedic medicine would be a really good way, if you're not familiar with foods for the season, of what's fortifying and what's grounding and what would feed you in that way when you start getting a little cranky as we move through this gate, because I think we will, and feeling that insecurity. I don't know about you, but nothing makes me feel better about myself than if I'm eating a warm bowl of soup or drinking a warm cup of tea. And I know you each have your own things that, okay, yeah, maybe it's going to be okay.
Yeah, for me, I would say find a simple creative practice, right? Like that's what I think fortifies a lot of people once you can get through the fear of inadequacy, right? Which we condition in around, artistic and creative pursuits. We condition that very heavily in our society. And again, like you don't have a creative practice because you are going to sell paintings. You have a creative practice because it's a place for you to just meet a blank canvas or a blank whatever, whatever it is you're doing, a blank piece of cloth, whatever your creative, pursuit is. It's just a matter of the doing. It's in the doing that the treasure is found, and the product is, it's not quite meaningless, but it doesn't really mean what we've been taught to think it means, right? It's the process that's really the value there. And again, we have this piece inside of us that's worried about not being enough, right? And so we don't start these things because we don't think they're going to be good enough. And that judgment is just, it's just the shadow of this time, right? So I don't know if it is a good time to start a creative practice or not, but there is supportive energy in the gift and the city. It is perfection, right? The highest expression of this gate 48 is reminding us that when we look inside, you talked about looking inside, Lois, when we look inside, what we should be seeing is perfection, right? We are all expressions of consciousness. We are here in a perfect form, And it's only the illusion that we're imperfect and flawed, that is what, that's the incarnate experience, right? That's what we're here to learn and to work through. Like, oh yeah, that's what I'm here to do, to remind myself that I too am a part of divinity, right? And so this is a really interesting time to maybe think through some of that.
It's interesting. You're both talking about filling yourself up with nurturing things, nurturing food, nurturing activity. And yet, what we watch with people is they'll fill themselves up with many, many things, like junk food or shopping or scrolling, but it's sort of anything to stay away from what's going on right here. And sort of facing the fears that you're talking about, Christine. And so I think it would be useful to look at, do you have a behavior that's drawing you away? And it could even be like, it could be knowledge. I'm just filling myself up, because you watch people now watching the news and it's like they're downloading everything, but what's it doing for them? It's filling up space and it's keeping them from looking here. But so what are the things that you might be doing that are not, that make you feel full and you feel like you don't have to face your fears, but they're not nurturing things? And what might you do, like you said, a practice, Christine, that would be fulfilling rather than just sating a feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, one of the simplest things that people could do in this next few days is just notice when you're in judgment. Just simply that. Don't be in judgment about it and don't try to shift it, but just notice how often, even if you're doom scrolling or even if you're just scrolling on Instagram, right? Like, oh, that person looks like this, or oh, this thing does that, or oh, people don't know what they're talking, right? Like whatever it is, like it's constant in our brain if we're not paying attention to it. And this energy very much is asking us to pay attention to this judgment piece, right? Like, because, again, we all need to discern in the world, right? What's for us, what's not. Do we have the energy for this? Do we not? Like, this discernment is really important. But that's for us, right? And judgment isn't really for anybody. It doesn't really, right? It just is a position that doesn't really help anybody. So just noticing that, I think, would be a really excellent practice.
In reviewing Hilary Barrett's work on this hexagram 48, the question she asked is, what is the ever-present resource you draw from? Which takes us back to the earlier conversation of filling ourselves up. And when I think about that and drawing deep and bringing up a resource, I think about oak, the Gemmo, and that's oak with a K, not oat. And the reason that comes to mind is, I mean, you can think of the strength that an oak tree visually will present, and its deep roots going down deep and drawing up. But also the action of the extract is really special because it's not like this on and off switch of strength. It's an embodied power that you gain. And I think really what we're talking about here and all around it is owning our power, because when we do, we don't feel inadequate. We don't have to judge others. We don't go in these other places. And so if all this that Christine and Lois and I are talking about feels like overwhelming to try or do or wrap your head around, I would really work with the Gemmo. And the Gemmo is going to teach you exactly what you need to know in that gate. And we need to remember that the way they work is they're reminders. And so with each drop you take, you get this gentle reminder. And it's not a taskmaster, it's not pushing, it's just, hey, remember this. And I think that's what we all need right now, because we may start out each morning with great intentions, and then maybe we make it to noon, maybe we make it to 9 a.m. before the world shifts and we're in that low density, just trying to protect ourselves to make it through the day.
Yeah. It's interesting when you said bring up like the oak, and it's just thinking about the tree and the root system and everything that goes on under the ground, that I got the feeling with this particular gate that there's a communal aspect or collective aspect to it, because we're not just dipping into our own knowing and knowledge, just recognizing that we're not alone, and there's this vast, well, it's the well of knowing in the world. And it's all there if we will be open to receiving it. So this, and that's how trees interact with each other.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, Lois. This is a collective gate, and I misspoke earlier. I was talking about eight. I was using the gene keys for 18 and not 48. So the gift and the higher expression is wisdom in 48. But 18 and 48 are very connected. They're part of the same stream of the potential of judgment into the action of correction. Essentially, like how do you correct the things that you see in the world? And 48 is that more activated space, and so it is resourceful, right? And so I think about, I mean, there's nothing more resourceful in my book than trees, right? So there definitely is this like collective resourceful energy in gate 48 in order to achieve wisdom, right? Like that's the city in gate 48. And this is this piece about discernment, right? Like, judgment may or may not learn anything, but being discerning is where we actually learn wisdom, right? In order to understand what is and, like I said, is for you and is not over time, wisdom is what comes out of that. Yeah. And so I love the idea of oak for this. I think it's, I like all the gemmos. So this is a particularly nice one. I still haven't made that wheel yet, Lauren. We're getting close to the whole year, so I want to put that together. Any other thoughts about 48? Did we get there? Did we do the thing?
I
Okay.
think we did the thing. I think we do need to note that we've got a full moon in there, though. And so there'll be some heightened energy, right? At the end as the gate comes to closure.
Yeah, you're right. I actually didn't even note that myself. That is true. It is that is the end of gate 48. The moon will be full. So, yeah, I mean, expect I would think lots of heightened energy maybe around this thing about whatever inadequacy, not feeling that you know enough, releasing that might be great. Maybe it's a great time to let go of some of that.
Yeah, or Christine, we have a heightened energetic surge around our wisdom that day. So what a thing to tap into.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And it would be perfect because we're gonna step from gate 48 into gate 57 on the 8th. And 57 is probably the most intuitive. I mean, it is intuitive insight is the name of it, and it is also the gentle. It's the most gentle of the gentle. So it's the wind. It's wind over wind is the hexagram, right? And so it is this extremely gifted energy of tapping into the every possible insight that we can have, right? It's an embodied intuition into the world. And this is one of those few gates. There's a few gates in the human design body graph that actually attach, most gates attach to just one other gate and form a channel. Gate 57 actually forms 3 different channels with 3 different gates. And so it has a lot of energy that is activated in our body graph on when it's on, it's connected to a lot of things more so than most energies. And so this intuition is really reflected in the body graph, right? There's a lot of knowing because there's a lot of deep attachment and connection within internally. And so this internal connection, I think, speaks to this idea of how we're experiencing the world, right? We are knowing, whether we believe it or not, whether we trust it or not, is a different thing, right? But each of us has this gift of an internal knowing, an internal sense of what's safe for us and what's not, what's correct for us and what's not in the moment. And so this might be, this period, the 8th to the 12th, I think about it being a particularly intuitive time for us if we allow it, right? Allowing that our bodies maybe to take more of a lead in what's going on in the world, because I think we can see very clearly what happens when we let our minds take the lead, right?
It's interesting because like the shadow here is unease. And I was thinking like with the wind, I mean, like gentle winds, all it's very soothing in that, but you get winds where the, trees are coming down and stuff. So there's this sort of multiplicity of feelings that come with the idea of the wind. But I was thinking about the feeling because like I've mentioned, I've moved into a much quieter place, and there's I'm noticing how different it is, the feelings that I have compared to when I was in that fishbowl of craziness, is that it impacted, even if I was trying to stay away from it, it impacted everything around me. And that now that it's not there so much, is like there's just this more room. So like what we're surrounded in has a huge impact. And Richard Rudd refers to us as being like tuning forks, and it's how impacted we are by the vibrations that are going on around us. So the big question is, who do you surround yourself with? What do you surround yourself with? Really paying attention to what are the differences. What places feel good and calm, and what places wind you up even though you were feeling good and calm.
So I'm really excited about Gate 57. And I may be for a number of reasons, because I'm actually traveling during that gate to one of my favorite places in the world with some of my favorite people in the world. I'm traveling to Romania. And I think when we travel, we can be more intuitive and more plugged in, because we're leaving behind what may normally distract us from day to day. So that's my little personal take on that. But when I dug into Hillary's work on Hexagram 57, I really love the statement she makes about our movement through these days. She says, like wind shapes a landscape, feel your way into things with tiny increments. And, I think about all the landscapes we have in our country, in America, where the wind has shaped beautiful canyons or deserts, or, the wind can be so powerful. And we're talking about gentle wind, but gentle winds work at things bit by bit. And I think that we're going to feel that within ourselves, like incrementally being shaped by these days.
Yeah, I like that. And I think, the keynote sentence for Gate 57 is the extraordinary power of clarity, right? And that is, clarity is also the highest expression of this energy. And so, and that's usually like what you were talking about, Lauren. That's usually how clarity shows up. I mean, every now and then you get this really like sudden, like, oh my God, the whole world, like epiphany kind of, the whole thing changes. But generally, clarity shows up in like little bits and little bits and little bits. And then sometimes what happens is you realize it in this kind of, moment. But all of the little things that went into bringing clarity are exactly that. They're little incremental shifts, right? To the point where I think, at least for myself, I have a hard time realizing where the clarity comes from sometimes because they are so incremental, right? And it's just like, didn't I always feel this way? Didn't I always know this thing? Right? But yeah, I do think that this is going to be a point, this is a very knowing time, right? This is an individual energy. It's an individual wanting to be, empowered, self-empowered, right? And so through this self-empowerment of clarity, and of using the intuition and in following your body's knowingness, that is, what we are here to be doing, right? And when we do that, we also give opportunity to others to do that for themselves as well, right? And so, um, yeah, I mean, this whole section of time actually, it makes me really think about how I think in general we think of fall, the autumn season, as a really, I don't know, activated time, but not like in an activated, like dysregulated way, but just like there's lots going on, right? We're back at school, we're back at work, we're doing all the things, we've got plans for whatever, the end of the year, like there's always this lots of activity around this time of year. And then when I look at these gates, I'm kind of like, oh, maybe that's why, just lots of shifting energy here, um, in a really, powerful way.
Finding my mute button there. I think there's so much here about trusting ourselves, but because like we were talking with gate 48 was the looking in and get, and then we're coming into this where there's some unease that's coming out of that. But as we're looking in, and this clarity and this wisdom is arising, it's still a lot of us don't trust it. Like, and we don't, and I think what you said about being more with our bodies has a lot to do with this here. So if we keep going to our head, what do we think? How should this be? That's going to interfere with our ability to just settle in and listen to what our bodies are telling us. And so I think there's a practice in there in just paying attention. It's like, so what's coming up and what did I know? And I mean, it's even little things like, when you're driving down the road and somehow that person once in your lane, even they haven't signaled, they haven't done anything, but you just know it. And just to pay attention to where those things are showing up all over the place, because they are, and then starting to listen to it.
Yeah, and I'd also say pay attention to the evidence that you amass, right? Like when you're driving down that lane, down the road, and somebody wants to shift in your lane, and you know it, and so you ease back and you let them just have the lane in front of you. Just like use that, like, see, that's my intuition, right? That's my embodied wisdom. Like recognizing that for yourself and saying, hey, that's a piece of intuition I can trust. We can trust it on the road, and we should certainly be able to trust it with whatever relationship we're struggling with at the moment, right?
I like the way that both of you brought up lanes, because I was thinking about both of these gates. The extracts that I'm looking at are organizing extracts, but the way I describe them is they're like bumper guards that keep us in our lane. And so we talked about oak, and I want to share that I think mistletoe would be really useful. And let me tell you these next dates. Let me tell you how I got there. So Hilary Barrett's description of hexagram 57 is actually, she uses a different phrase than the gentle. She translates it as subtly penetrating. And that's, I mean, the minute I read those words, I was like, oh, this has to be mistletoe, because what mistletoe does, and by the way, I think it gets a really bad rap. I think mistletoe is a very cool plant, but that would be another recording. So what mistletoe does is it subtly penetrates the bark of the tree that it's going to use as a host for a period of time, just in incremental steps. So that goes right along with what we were talking about earlier. And when it does that, it gets to know that system. What's going on here? What do I need? How do I support myself in this system? And then gets to work making itself safe. And once it's safe, it actually becomes independent. And it no longer is draining resources from that tree. It's completely independent. And I love that for this period of days, because the way I would draw this analogy is we're tapping into that resource of our intuition, right? And what's going on here? What's happening? Okay. And then I can become independent and in my power and my decision making. I have something, if you bear with me for a minute, I want to read about the oracle message for mistletoe. Is mistletoe delivers a deeply felt sense of peace. Soak it in and rest for a moment in the truth that everything is as it should be. And I think that really is what we've just been talking about.
And if everything is just as it should be, what have we got to be so afraid of? Which this is all of these splenic gene keys have been about facing our fears.
Yeah, no, I think that's really true. And I think it's interesting that the word penetrating comes up several times in the human design side of this energy, and one of which is this connection to gate 20, which is the gate of the now, right, in the moment. So gate 57 and gate 20 come together, they form the brainwave channel. It's the design of penetrating awareness, right? So there is this penetrating idea as well in there. And I do think that that's, something to be aware of too in this time frame, right? Like that, I mean, I think that Hillary's term was more subtle, subtly penetrating, but I wonder if we are not going to all feel a bit of this penetrating, energy, right? Like something's really pushing in at us, or we are really focused very deeply on something else, right? And just recognizing that it's going to be there in the air for all of us. And again, it's in service of exactly what you're talking about, which is this self-empowerment, right? This is part of the integration circuit in the human design body graph. The integration circuit is this powerful energy field, essentially, that is pushing for self-realization, right? And this is what we're all here doing, imperfectly, right? And so this is this whole time period, I think, in this 40 gate 48, gate 57, it's going to be a lot of really powerful opportunity to really allow some of that to happen, and allow some shifts within ourselves, right? Like we are definitely at a point where we all know what's working and what's not in some ways, right? Now, whether we feel like we can release what's not working or whatever, that's a different question. But just practicing releasing a bit of things that aren't working would be really awesome. And I think these two gates will have a lot of opportunity to really play around with that.
Emphasis on the play. All right.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And again, like this is the thing, like we've talked about, I can't remember which gate it was a while back, about seriousness, right? We just came not too long ago, we were talking about this seriousness thing. And we are definitely all in the energy of seriousness is profound right now, right? And again, I'm not saying that's not for good reason. There are lots of things going on that we do not know. But it really is. I really often think now of the fable about the Chinese farmer with the horse that showed up and then disappeared, and every time the community came in and said, "Ooh, that's really good luck," or "That's really bad luck," and every time the farmer's like, "Maybe," right? Like maybe we don't know, right? And so it's just a really good idea to be a little bit less certain about what's good and what's bad, and a little bit more playful about what you're willing to try, right? Experiment. This is the best thing I think any of us can do.
It's interesting too, because these experiments and then leading you to trust yourself and then be more open is that somehow what you need arrives rather than having to work so hard for things. What's important really shows up. And so this again, surrendering. So sort of surrendering to what is creates such opening. And I think that's part of what we're afraid of because we can't control it, right? And we don't know. So those are two things that not knowing. And I think that's a lot of what the shadow unease is about in this particular gate is like, I don't know, and I'm supposed to know. And like Ebenezer Scrooge, I don't know anything. I never did know anything. So
Yeah, what is that? Like stupid before enlightenment, stupid after, right? You know?
but happy maybe.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I think that this is, when you said you don't know, that's what the unease is. But it's the conditioning that makes us uneasy with it, right? Like humans have never known ever what was coming at them, right? And so there have been other times in our history where we were more in trust of that and in understanding of that, right? And I think that that is a really good lesson for us too, right? We have been under the illusion that we've had control for, not very long, maybe couple hundred years, maybe. And all I will say is, look where that's brought us. So maybe the evidence is that thinking we're in control isn't actually the the higher energy here, right?
Oh, we're delusional then. All right. That feels like we came right around again. So, well, thank you for being with us, and we hope we'll see you next time.